We will look at some other poets apart from Kolhatkar and the Bombay School itself, and one of those leading figures is Jayanta Mahapatra, who wrote from Orissa itself. Mahapatra is well known for his metaphors, a certain kind of a humanitarianism where his sympathy with the underdog, which is throughout his career, enabled a kind of probing and a self-clarity which takes him to many dark corners of Indian life itself, where he's looking at violence, poverty, and oppression itself. His metaphorical imagination is quite developed. Mahapatra started writing pretty late in his life. He was a physics professor and goes on to write in many American journals in the first place and publishes his poetry, and after that he is pretty well known in India. He ran a magazine called Chandrabhaga for a really long period of time, publishing poetry, and that way Mahapatra has been not just a poet but also a facilitator in that sense of poetry in India. I've chosen this poem called Grandfather because it has very important repercussions for his own poetry itself, because it draws on his life. Mahapatra was a Christian, and this is about his grandfather, and this is about a horrible famine that Orissa experienced in 1866, thanks to which 1/3 of the population was wiped out, and this population that was that remained had to face dire consequences because of this famine. Many there are reports also of cannibalism at this point of time. People are desperate to live. Many of them go on to eat and survive on leaves and whatever they could lay their hands on. But one crucial event that takes place at this point of time is that many of these survivors also eat at the state sponsored or the missionary sponsored food camps, and they are known as chhatra in Odia. These food camps, and the people who ate there are known as chhatrakhya, basically people who have eaten at the chhatra. And what happened was that these chhatrakhyas were banished from the folds of Hinduism because they have partaken food at the Christian place itself, so thereby they have relinquished religion. So many of them converted to Christianity, and one of those converts was Mahapatra's grandfather. Mahapatra lived all his life in Cuttack in Orissa and lived as a minority, belonging to a minority in Cuttack itself, and he writes from that position, and that's why it's very important to understand that positionality of Mahapatra while we think about his poetic oeuvre itself. And this poem therefore I have chosen so that it gives us a sense of selfhood and identity that is constructed in Indian English poetry. The yellowed diary notes whisper in vernacular. He's talking about finding his grandfather's diaries, which he has included in his autobiography in Odia that he wrote which was published very recently, called Bhoro Motiro Kannafulo. The yellowed diaries notes whisper in vernacular. They sound the forgotten posture, the cramped cry that forces me to hear that voice. Now I stumble back on your black paged awake. It's that history that awakes him, that this is, he's struck at the cross sections of identity, history and religion here, and he's trying to construct a self, and it has kept him stumble back on your black paged awake. Wake, no uneasy stir of cloud darkened the white skies of your day. The silence of dust grazed in the long afternoon. Sorry, this is afternoon. Sun ruling the cracked fallow earth ate into laughter of your flesh. That there was no rain, and the cause of the famine. For it was the hardest question of all. Dead, empty trees stood by dragging river, past your weakened body, flailing against your sleep. You thought of the way jackals moved to move. Did you hear the young tamarind leaves rustle in the cold, mean lights of your belly? Did you see your own death? Watch it tear your cries, break them into fits of unnatural laughter. He's talking about a very sad period of history in Orissa. It's talking about the 1866 famine, when people are eating tamarind leaves because that's what, you don't have food in your belly. The cold, mean nights of your belly, that you don't have food, the belly is grumbling in hunger, and jackals are moving around because there are dead bodies on the street. So human beings, animals, all looking for food there, right? So past your weakened bodies, empty trees, because people have already taken off any leaves that were around. Did you see your own death? Watch it tear at your cries. Is death? He presents a very compassionate image of death itself. That death which is tearing at your cries, break them into fits of unnatural laughter. How old were you? Hunted, you turned coward and ran. The real animal in you plunging through your bone. You left your family behind, the buried things, the precious cloth that had praised the quality of God, the imperishable that swung your broken body, turned it inside out. What did faith matter? In such a precarious, vulnerable condition, does faith matter? Because your body is bruised and battered, you left your family behind, you turned coward. Obviously, you turned coward. People have, those who ate at the chhatra, they were called cowards, that like you could not like bear the pangs of hunger, and you have done this. You have left your religion. You did not have any concern for your religion. That's what he's talking about, the quality of the God. What Hindu world so ancient and true for you to hold? Uneasily you dreamed towards the center of your web. The separate life let you survive, while perhaps the one you left wept in the blur of your heart. Now in a night of sleep and taunting rain, my son and I speak of that famine nameless as snow. A conscience of years is between us. He is young. The worlds of glory are breaking down for him before me. Does he think of the past as a loss we have lived, our own? Our silence, we look back now at what we do not know. There is a dawn waiting beside us, whose signs are 100 odd years away from you, grandfather. You are an invisible piece on a board whose move has made our children grow to know us, carrying us deep where our voices lap into silence. We wish we knew you more. We wish we knew what it was to be against dying, to know the dignity that had to be earned dangerously. Your last chance was that blind, terrifying, so unfair. We wish we had not to wake up with our smiles in the middle of some social order. So you can see a trenchant critique of the social order itself, like Kolatkar. Here also you see a critique against institutionalized caste system, institutionalized religion itself, that even in precarious moments when people are dying by the roadside and vultures and jackals are eating them, and you probably are also competing with them to find some food, at that moment also religion thinks of people in terms of us and they. And that's what he's talking about, that we still have scars of that time, because it's not just precarity which is about famine and vulnerability, the lack of food, because it changed our identity forever. The separate life let you survive, that you chose a separate life, while perhaps the one you left wept in the blur of your heart, that you left behind your Hindu self and converted, and you are, that probably weeps inside. And I and my son speak of that famine still. Uh, and he says that we wish we had not had to wake up with our smile on the middle of some social order. In the social order, where are we, the converted Christians? How do we navigate this entire world from this kind of a hybrid identity, a liminal identity itself? And you can see a certain kind of a brooding quality which marks itself as the typical Mahapatra's voice, in you will see. And one can see also in terms of the growth of Indian English poetry, where it is taking on native local subjects. Now, it's not afraid to talk about the local subject itself. It's talking about very personal histories. The personal is rendered in the idiom of English poetry, probably which was unthinkable 50, 60 years back. The personal becomes the site itself. If in Jejuri you saw someone's personal ruminations and reflections on a certain kind of social situation, here you see a deliberation on personal history which is deeply imbricated in the society in the Odia society's history itself. 1866, the famine itself is a landmark event in Orissa, because post it, many commentators trace the beginnings of Odia nationalism from there, and a thinking of a statehood in terms of a cultural imaginary emerges post 1866, and Mahapatra situates his personal story against that national story, against that story of famine in British India itself. So you have the global and the local interacting there, but on a very different scale than what is thought of by Kolatkar. Here you see identity becomes a paramount question, and that is also carried over to one of the most significant poets of post-independence India, Kamala, who writes this poem, most anthologized, an introduction, where she says that English is able to take on the burden of my selfhood. If English was thought of as a foreign language, she claims that no, it's not foreign anymore. It can take on the burden of my own self. And you see that in the poem and in her vociferous advocacy of it. I do not know politics, but I know the names of those in power, can repeat them like days of week of name or names of month, beginning with Nehru. I'm Indian, very brown, born in Malabar. I speak 3 languages, write in 2, dream in 1. Don't write in English, they said. English is not in your mother tongue. Why leave me alone? Critics, friends, visiting cousins, every one of you. Why not let me speak in any language I like? The language I speak becomes mine. Its distortions, its queerness, all mine, mine alone. So she says, why not let me speak in a language that I know and I want to speak in? And thereby she is also talking about how the journey of English itself, in at least poetic medium, or in general also of Indian writing in English itself, you can see that by now English has come to be thought of as the writer's language also. That writers are no more shy of claiming that this is the language of my intellectual makeup, or this is the language in which I can write about myself. This is the language in which I can construct myself. If Mahapatra is able to tell his own intimate personal trauma in this language, the language can then hold on Indian experience. That's what the claim is of these post-independence poets as we see in India. And Kamala Das obviously is a radical feminist icon, and she's talking about much more. But this is the initial point that I wanted to make regarding this poem. And you see that she starts talking about again English, which lives amidst many languages, and since we were talking about Kolatkar himself, who lived in an ecosystem of Marathi and English, similarly Jayanta Mahapatra, who lived within an ecosystem of Odia and English, who wrote in both languages, towards the later half of his life, Mahapatra mostly wrote in Odia itself, and his autobiography is also published in Odia. Kamala Das similarly says that she speaks 3 languages, writes in 2 and dreams in 1. And people have told her that, like, why don't write in English? Like Bankim would give this advice that, like, you probably should write in Bengali rather than writing in English. He says people have also given her similar advice that, like, don't write in English. English is not your mother tongue. Why not leave me alone? And here the cry is as much about a linguistic sovereignty as much about agency, about her own self, that, like, why not just leave me alone? So that's why she begins by saying, I don't know politics, and again a cry against institutions, that I don't want to be associated with power. I know of them, but I don't want to do politics and everything. But she says, just let me be. So therefore, let me be in whatever language I want to be. So she says, if my English is bad, distorted, queer, or whatever, it's all mine alone. It's an assertion which is not restricted only to her choice of language. It's about her life decisions itself, that, like, whatever my life is, it's mine alone. You see a feminist avowal and assertion of agency here. And then you also, we can recall Ezekiel in Miss Pushpa T.S. which we were discussing, that whatever the ways in which we use English, the confidence can be seen that this is the way we do it. With all its distortions, it's mine. It is half English, half Indian, funny perhaps. We can think about Miss Pushpa T.S., but it is honest. The warmth that is there in the farewell, that, like, people are really wishing her well. So the warmth is there. There is honesty. It is as human as I am human. Don't you see? It voices my joys, my longings, my hopes, and it is useful to me as cawing is to crows and roaring to the lions. It is human speech, the speech of the mind that is here and not there, a mind that sees and hears and is aware. One of the most emphatic advocacies of English itself, that it is the language which comes to me naturally. It's as useful as cawing or crowing to animals. It's as natural as that. It's human speech, not the deaf, blind speech of trees in storms or monsoons, clouds or rains, or incoherent mutterings of the blazing funeral pyre. I was child, and later they told me I grew, and for I became tall, my limbs swelled, and one or two places sprouted hair. When I asked for love, not knowing what else to ask, and we after this point we go into her personal life also a bit. When I asked for love, not knowing what else to ask for, he drew a youth of 16 into the bedroom and closed the door. He did not beat me, but my sad woman body felt so beaten. And she has talked about her own personal life in various other domains also, in various other narratives also, and that's quite familiar to any readers of Kamala Das or Indian English poetry or Indian poetry itself, where she details her early life and her problems with her domestic life, where she was assaulted, and she says that he drew a youth of 16. She was too young to be married, and therefore he did not have to beat her explicitly, like physically brutally beat her, but body felt beaten. The weight of my breast and womb crushed me. The weight of domesticity, the weight of childbearing crushed her. I shrank pitifully. Then then I did something else. I wore a shirt and my brother's trousers, cut my hair short, ignored my womanliness. There is a rebellion against that idea of domestic household wifely duties. She rebels against that. She cuts her hair short. She ignores her womanliness. Dress in saris, be girl, be wife, they said. Be embroidered, be cook, be a quarreler with servants, fit in. So she was asked to fit in, but she does not fit in. Don't sit on walls or peep through our lace window, draped windows. Be Amy or Kamala, or better still be Madhavi Kutti. It's time to choose a name, a role. Don't play pretending games. Don't play at schizophrenia or be a nympho. Don't cry embarrassingly loud when jilted in love. I met a man, loved him, call him by any name. Just he's every man who wants. So you can see that she goes through a very rebellious phase where the society is constantly harping on her to fit into categories, and she refuses to fit into any category. She falls in love with a man after deserting her domestic duties as a wife, and he met a man, but then that man is again, he says, just like in every man who wants what? A woman, just as I am very woman who seeks love. In him the hungry taste of river, in me the ocean tireless waiting. She gives vein to sexual desires here. So we get to see desire here being explored. One of Mahapatra's poems called Hunger also talks about this idea of desire itself. So you can see Indian English poetry going into very the very interiorities of Indian life and exposing the various hierarchies and the hypocrisies that are there. And she's asked, who are you? I ask each and everyone. The answer, it is I. Anywhere and everywhere I see the one who calls himself I in this world. He is tightly packed like a sword in his sheath. It is I who drink lonely drinks at 12 midnight in hotels in strange towns. It is I who laugh. It is I who make love and then feel shame. It is I who lying with a rattle in my throat. I am sinner, I am saint, I am the beloved, I am the betrayed. I have no joys that are not yours, no aches that are not yours. I too call myself I. So what you see is that if it starts with a cry for her to fit into the pigeonholes, by the end of the poem, she reaches subjectivity. It's a journey from that kind of, it's a journey of that rebellion where Kamala Das, Madhavi Kutti reaches her subjectivity, finds the I, no matter, much like English, no matter whatever its distortions, whatever its queerness, it's all mine, mine alone. You see this poem as an assertion of womanhood, of her own subjectivity, no matter how flawed it is, no matter how deviant the society thinks of it. A critique, a radical political critique of this kind is almost unprecedented in Kamala Das's time, and that's why Kamala Das emerges as a very radical poet in terms of Indian English writing. And if you see the kind of journey that we have charted from early 18th century from William Jones, when British presence in India was writing about India, to Kamala Das, one sees the trajectory where Indian English poetry comes to stand on its own, comes to think of English as its own language. There's no hesitation, or the way that Derozio thought about that this language, this climate is not suitable for a history of poetry or writing. By the time we reach someone like Kamala Das, we have a triumphant assertion that English is the language of our intellectual makeup. It can withstand Indian realities, and it can be a vehicle of politics itself. It can be a vehicle of freedom itself. It can be a vehicle of activism itself. It can be a vehicle of personal history itself. It can be a vehicle of commentary on institutionalization itself, on various institutions itself. One sees a variety that is unprecedented by the 1960s as new poets start coming in, and then later you have poets like Imtiaz Dharkar, Vikram Seth, and others who are writing wonderful English poetry as we see in terms of Indian English poetry. Thank you.